We have a special guest come in today, take time out of his busy schedule to talk to you guys. You can come up here if you want, you can wander around, I'll follow you with the camera. But
cool, okay.
basically, this is David Fleming. He's been on, why don't you go ahead and introduce who are you and what do you do? You can be the guy that starts us off.
I want to say first, as a recovering, I'm a recovering theater geek, but an artist as well, and I admire this greatly enough that before I leave today, whoever was a part of, I'd like whoever to sign at the beginning of their page of the portion that you represent. Totally cool. This is just a bonus for me coming in today. My name is David Fleming. I work at KVCR, just down the road on the campus of Valley College. We're not attached to the college, but we're housed there. It's a public radio station. That means that we are, and some of you may know some of the things that I am about to say. Forgive me. But public radio as opposed to commercial radio. Commercial radio, it's driven by advertisements. You know, Coca-Cola or whatever. I love Coca-Cola, but I always pick on them for the example. The big difference in commercial radio being reliant on commercials to provide income, they can sometimes be beholden to what those advertisers are wanting you to do. That is, so they can say, you know, I don't like these stories about whatever, Israel or LGBTQ plus issues or whatever. They may try to influence the station to do what they want them to do or to stop doing what they don't want them to do. Cameras here, we'll have to start again.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm just, and so we are listener-supported public radio. And what that means, quite frankly, is that a few times a year, generally twice for about 10 days, and then there's another third or fourth time in there, where we're actually on the air. I know you've seen this on PTS stations, maybe heard it. Chances are it's your parents' try. A lot of people's first exposure to NPR is that boring stuff that their parents have on in the front seat while you're stuck back there. But we go on the air asking directly for financial support. Most of our operating budget comes directly from listeners. Some people send in $20, some people send in $500, anywhere in between. It all adds up to pay for the programs that we provide. It is, I hate to say this, but I always do. If I'm talking about NPR, I may come across as elitist a little bit here and there. Despite my humility, I do believe that NPR is a cut far above commercial radio. You won't have people yelling at you in the morning, although the mornings is usually fun for me. But instead of people announcing at you, come on down right now, but rather we'll be talking to you. And so note that while my voice, the volume dropped down just a little bit, instead of yelling at you, everybody just tuned in a little bit closer to find out what I was saying. You can accomplish the same thing by speaking to somebody, rather than announcing at everybody. And it's so fake too. So anyway, those are really a couple of big differences. You'll also never hear on public radio and NPR stations, come down to this, whatever, car dealership, let's say. Come down right now or in the next 10 minutes and you get this much off. That's called a call to action. So we would never do that. That's just briefly what NPR radio is. KVCR is a bit of an anomaly in that we are both an NPR radio station, but we're also a PBS TV station. Presumably you grew up around here, and so if you were watching Big Bird as a child, chances are it came from KVCR. Chances are you've already encountered me, but it was really me saying Sunday afternoon at 3, and that was it. And those are the main parts of KVCR FM radio and TV, the PBS. We started something else that's really cool that I'm peripherally a part of. It's called FNX, which is First Nations Experience. It is of, by, and for Indigenous folk. Not necessarily Native American, or excuse me, not exclusively, I should say, Native American. It's really anybody indigenous. So there is a lot of, probably dominantly Native American produced programming, But there's also, say, Icelandic Inuit indigenous people, or Aboriginal in Australia, or whatever. Indigenous folks produce, whether it's news or talk programs or mystery, fiction shows, or music. There's one thing, for example, called the Avhs, A-U-X. It stands for something I don't remember what. But what it is it's very similar to MTV. When I saw MTV start, it was truly over 99% music videos. And now it's a lot of other stuff. But the Avhs is nothing but the videos. The thing is, if you think of Native American music, there are a lot of generalities that people will often associate. They'll think of this guy by the name of R. Carlos Nakai, playing the cedar flute in the Grand Canyon, this meditative kind of stuff. Okay, that's one of many things. On the Avhs, you will get that type of music. You'll also get some hard, screaming, kick-ass punk rock. Something loud, some monster guitars. Violin, whether it's a classical concerto or electric and amped up Metallica on the violin, if you can imagine. Look it up, it's cool. Rap, hip hop, there's just really every genre of music you can find. The only thing is that these are all indigenous folk that you'll find on this. That is FNX, something really cool. It's the only thing of it, the only station like it in the country. There's one similar in Canada, so I can't say in the world, but really, it's the only one in the country. We're across the country now. It started just down, like I said, down the road here. That is briefly about KVCR FM, TV side. Anybody else hearing that?
How'd you get into all of this?
As I mentioned, I'm a recovering theater geek. And I will probably use the term geek quite often during this conversation. I mean it lovingly and in embrace. It's everything that I grew up with. Comics, making art of some kind, two-dimensional art usually, and music, surrounded by music. Played the guitar for since 1983, and I think I know more chords than Elvis, but that's not saying much. Elvis Presley only needed 3 or 4 chords before he died on the toilet. He did, anyway. So, and that's not why he died. I think it was banana and peanut butter sandwiches.
Probably.
Like that. But anyway.
Combination of the two.
I didn't come to talk to you about Elvis dying on the toilet or what he was doing. But yeah, so I think growing up in theater, at the community theater, and since then I've done really a number of different levels. That's what my bachelor's was in theater, eventually after the Navy and recovering from that as well. I've done regional, local, community theater, professional level, touring, various types of theater. But eventually, at some point, I started working at the local radio station. It was another NPR station. Many, if not most, NPR stations are based on a university or college campus. And so just as a student worker, when you go to college, you can often get a student work kind of position. And it could be sitting at a desk answering the phones. It could be custodial. It could be really any kind of thing, a teaching assistant. And for me, it was working at the radio station. And almost right off the bat, they had me in. They asked if I could speak well. They handed me something that was difficult on purpose to read, floating in between composers and, going from French to German to Russian, whatever. And so having to say all this stuff and sound fluid, like I'm happy to be saying, yeah, Tchaikovsky and Vladimir Ashkenazy. Has anybody ever said Vladimir Ashkenazy in a sentence? No, you probably won't. But anyway. So while I was growing up in theater, probably around the age of 14, 15, 16, a lot of the people from the local NPR station ended up volunteering their time at the community theater as well. And so I think I just started looking up to them. And at one point I thought being a DJ is would be cool. You know, you say you're involved in theater. People, oh, you must be an actor. Oh, excuse me, I'm from Kentucky. So if I kind of go with a dumbass question, I'll throw on a Kentucky dialect. But anyway, and so same thing with radio. You work in radio? Must be a DJ. No. I mean, at one point I was spinning discs, as it were. I was playing, but again, it's not what you'll find on the commercial dial. I was doing things, weird things like classical, jazz, blues, folk, Celtic, bluegrass, new age, space music, kind of relaxation, meditation kind of stuff. And so at that point, yeah, I guess I was a DJ. But these days, I'm really more of an announcer and producer. My main jobs at KVCR currently, beyond peripheral stuff, doing TV things like that Sunday afternoon at 3. I host a national news magazine called All Things Considered. And with that, I'm simply the local host. I'm giving traffic reports and weather reports and doing newscasts several times through the hour for 4 hours, Monday through Friday. The other half of my day is working in directly combining all of my geekdoms there, isn't it? With this program called, since we are KVCR, my show is called KVC Arts. It is a long format interview program, and what I mean by that, long format, it's not, you listen to a lot of commercial stations, Sammy Hagar's coming to town. Oh yeah, really, what, you got a street named after you in Fontana, cool, okay, we'll see you Friday. That's the whole bloody interview. With me, a short interview would be 20 minutes. My preferences lie in doing an interview of anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour and a half. And I will air that on my show. Because a lot of the time when we have produced features, that is a 5-minute length piece where you're speaking with, let's say, anybody about some event coming up, you are hopefully speaking with them for a while being 10 minutes, 15, 20, 45 minutes. But then when it goes on the air, what you have is about 3.5 minutes of that conversation. And the rest is off to the cutting room floor, as they say. Used to say. Digital file, some are gone these days. And so the creation of my show was really for the rest of the story. I don't know if you've heard of a person called Arlo Guthrie or not. No matter. He's the type of guy that if you say hello to him, it's suddenly a 13 to 18 minute funny conversation. And to have to throw away all but 3.5 minutes of it is a waste. And so my program is for the rest of the show. I got away from the question though.
Yeah, how you got into it. Yeah.
Which was young theater geek looking up to some of the NPR geeks, saying, I want to be like you someday. And I've always been hyper articulate anyway. And I'm not trying to straighten this up for my speech right now. This is how I've always spoken.
No, and that's absolutely true. And you can instantly hear when he speaks, it's like he's got that NPR radio sound. And no matter when you talk to him, you get that same sound because there's a genuineness to it. Some people just have that radio voice. And that's always kind of blown me away whenever I talk to you, whether it's on the phone or in person. I feel like I'm listening to the radio. So yeah, it's just sort of a natural thing. I'm curious because I don't even know this. What's a daily grind like for you? What's a normal day? How does that work? As much as there can be a normal day.
In essence, the first half of my day is either prepping for an interview, or doing the interview, or editing the interview. I love digital editing. Just slicing, you get that waveform, on your, whatever, Adobe Audition. And then me taking, okay, I need that, I don't need that, get rid of that, smush these together, and now it sounds good all of a sudden. That's really the first half of my day. And sometimes my researching the interview, I do the scare quotes because my research, I'm so lucky in this, in that I get to surf the web, goof off, looking at YouTube, reading about some of my favorite artists, musicians, theater people, actors, whatever. And this is actually my research for the day. I get to read about some song or some group or whatever that I've always loved, whether it's just because I was a kid and I like their music or whatever the case is. That's the first half of my day, every day. It's a few different things: editing, preparing, or actually doing the interview. But the cool thing about doing the interviews, by the way, and I've interviewed Chris at least a half a dozen times,
Yeah.
maybe 7 or 8, under his various projects. And the cool thing about it is, using Chris for an example, I love prepping for the interview, reading about his multiple albums, or his artwork, his current, whether it's Grace or any of the other, like the Shujum, some of his novels, some of his various musical endeavors, was the Chris Thayer Band or the Gravity Brothers. May 16th, June. No, they can't get in anymore.
Yeah, they can.
Okay. Tell your parents. Okay. But yeah, so I enjoy prepping for the interview. Then I love speaking with him as well. And then when I go back to edit it, I always take out all the ums and uhs, and it's my own drummer. I can't remember his name. Hang on. And then I just clean it up. I love doing that. That's the first half of my day. The second half is hosting All Things Considered. It's about every 3.5 to 12 minutes, I'm back on the air saying, you're listening to All Things Considered. This is 91.9 KDCR. I'm David Fleming. All Things Considered continues in just a few moments. First, thanks to the Paducah Sun, publishing news you can understand daily. Call 800-599-4737. Paducah's back in Kentucky, but I just blanked on examples for around here. Now back to All Things Considered. It's 4:19. That's the second half of each and every day. And often I'm not just like, ready to just do my newscast and all that kind of stuff. In all honesty, I'm running to the microphone, doing that thing, and then running back and editing. And I get done editing, I get to a point, I look at the clock, and I have to run back, jumping over things, running down the hallway, trying to catch my breath, kneecapping myself as I try to go into the room. In total pain, as long as I am able to come on and say, this is 91.9 KDCR, and David Fleming. All Things Considered continues in just under 2 minutes. Coming up a little bit later in the program, we have this. And it goes on from there. That's the second half of each and every day. It's kind of fun. It's kind of a, high exposure kind of thing. But really, a lot of my favorite items, be it in the world of radio or theater, it's been in the background. I've had just as much fun and success, if you will, in the theater world, being the main character, or the director, or the stage manager, one of the more prominent roles. But I've had just as much fun playing either the third sailor on the left, or even just raising the curtain. As long as I was a part of what somebody chose to go out and do that evening, to see a show or a concert or something. I don't care if I'm performing or just being helping people, helping the process. I like to know that I'm a part of what people hope to have gone out for entertainment that evening.
You mentioned some of the bands and artists and theater performers, and like, who are some of the memorable ones that actually these guys might know?
Okay.
Some of the big ones.
That's a tough one because I've just not too long ago passed my 500th program, my show, 500th show. It's maybe 520 or so by now. People that they would know. Steve Vai? Anyone? No? He played with Frank Zappa? Nuts.
He was in the movie Crossroads.
Yeah. God, well, okay, you don't know him. He is a monster guitarist. He's one of those guys that doesn't just play, but he discovers sounds. He is, in his own words, 85% musician, about 10% theater ham, and about 5% musician. And he is one of these, mostly in the world of instrumental rock, by the way. But anyway, he dropped out of Berklee School of Music because he was transposing this Frank Zappa's work. Frank Zappa, again, is a monster guitarist, and Steve Vai was transcribing his work. You know what I mean by that, transcribing his work? For those who don't, or are giving me this. It's basically listening to it and writing down what notes he's hitting. Namely on a song called The Black Page. It's called The Black Page because there's so many notes in it that all the little notes, it fills it up so much, it almost looks like a black page. That's the first thing he transcribed, sent to Zappa, then he started working for him.
Yeah.
And then after that, he started playing with him. And again, Monster Guitars playing for Monster Guitars.
Well, he's one of those guys. I remember there was a story where someone was transcribing what he played, Steve Vai, and you have to pull the string off the fretboard and around the back of the neck to make the note, and then bring it back. Like, nobody does that. It's insane. So that's the kind of music that Vai and Zappa, you know, they're so creative. They're like thinking outside the box to the point where they're playing stuff that no one ever played.
Vai, if you have a chance to remember this and write this down if you want to check it out. Okay, Steve Vai, first of all, last name V-A-I. Look for two of his songs from his most recent release called Inviolate or Inviolate. The two that I'm going to have you look for is one is called Teeth of the Hydra. And he has a guitar called the Hydra. He's built or had built multi-neck guitars before. You know, a lot of people have seen two necks on a guitar. This one, 3 necks. One is a bass, one is a 7-string guitar, one is a 12-string. Some of all of those are without frets. Down here he has harp strings.
Jeez.
Also, there are MIDIs, that is little computer tracks or buttons that he can hit for a growling sound or whatever, for example. All this stuff, and so on this one thing called Teeth of the Hydra, he had to come up with a song that would utilize all of this stuff, not just for the gimmick of playing a guitar like that, but to actually make it sound like an instrument, that's achieving a complete song with a beginning, a middle, and a build, a crescendo coming back down. The other one called Knapsack, spelled with 2 P's, Knapppsackr. It's called that because his doctor was named Dr. Knapp. He was about to get shoulder surgery. Who plays guitar? Okay. Those who don't, or those who don't know, that you don't have to just use the pick to get the sound. You can just simply use the hammers or lifts to get the sound. You know, just dropping a finger down hard on the string and you'll get a tone, and when you lift it up, you'll get a tone as well. Because Vai was going to have shoulder surgery, he did, again, one complete song. Every song that he does, he always looks to challenge himself, something that he's never done before, whether it's playing every solo with one finger on one string, or in a case like this, Knapsack. He played it entirely one-handed, because this was in wasn't this one? Yeah. This arm was in a sling, and he could not play with both hands. So the whole thing is him sliding, hammering, lifting, and it's a complete song. It's like a speed metal kind of thing where it's just amazing. It's full and it's rich, and it's all done with one hand. These are two that you should look up for Steve Vai. Or the older stuff with Frank Zappa. Look for Stevie's Spanking, for example. That's just a jam between him and Frank, but it's good.
I remember there was a track on, I think it's his first record, where it's just some lady like hollering at somebody, and he's playing the notes that the person is speaking really fast along with
We will
it.
make them laugh instead. We will make them glad, and we will keep them from feeling bad, and he will never be sad.
It's so fun to be happy. And I always want to be happy with you, Steve. I never want it to be a cloudy day. I always want the sun to shine. And even if one day...
It's the most insane thing I've ever heard. But it's like you take somebody just like yelling at somebody else, and he plays the notes of the conversation.
Okay, you guys may know of this one, even though the band is from my time, a band called Toto, like Dorothy. I don't think we're in Kansas anymore.
They've heard Africa, I'm sure.
Yeah, okay, that's what I was going to say, Africa. Whether is it Stranger Things that was trending now, or American Horror Story?
It was in one of those, yeah.
That one, I don't know if anybody cares about Toto trivia as much as me, but with their music. They've had 3 billion streams of their music to this date. 1 billion of that is all Africa.
Yeah.
1 billion of their 3 is all in that one song. The reason I bring up Toto is the fact that I've been able to interview a couple of the members of Toto. One of them a couple of times. Another monster guitarist, this guy by the name of Steve Lukather, who's played on everything. I really like 2,100 or 2,300 studio sessions where you just go in and play the "Let's Get Physical," and then he's done. Give me my check. I'm done. He played on.
Oh, he's a monster player.
And they laughed at that. They laughed at it. He's done things which are called a 0 take. You've heard of a first take, right? Like you go in, okay, give me what you got, you record, okay, we got it on 1 take. Good, we're done. He's done things called a 0 take, where there's a song from Lionel Richie, who used to be with the Commodores, Brick House. Oh, I've got this, you know that song, I've got the story behind it. Like how that was written, why it was written, kind of a funny thing. But he would go in, and he would just start warming up. Lionel Richie's Running with the Night. There's, for a pop song, it actually has a close to 1 minute guitar solo toward the end. That was him walking in and warming up and deciding what he might do. And he was like, okay, I'm ready to go. And they said, no, we're done.
That's
and
wild.
What ended up on the record. It's incredible. And going back to Vi for a second, he heard this guy, and Steve Vai heard this guy, Steve Lukather. Didn't know who he was for the longest time, but decided that's the type of instrumental that I need to start building. And it had all the qualities that became a roadmap for him. Gosh, okay, the Toto guys. Actress by the name of Molly Ringwald.
Oh yeah, 16 Candles, Breakfast
She was in
Club.
a lot of the John Hughes movies. The Pale Redhead. Any Pale Redhead? Okay. Pale Redhead. Sort of. But interestingly, I wasn't even interviewing her about her long acting career. She released a jazz album, and we spoke about nothing but that. Another actor by the name of Hal Holbrook. He's an old man. Well, he was an old man. Now he's dead. One tends to lead to the other. But let's see. He did Mark Twain for years and years. Like he's probably portrayed Mark Twain 600 times. Or something
Yeah.
like that.
Oh yeah.
That's the reason that I spoke with him.
He had a very long career, but I know him most for the Mark Twain stuff. Like that became his swan song.
Truly. I may not be able to name too many that you know because, like I said, I don't touch the world of pop music. If it's some kind of bubblegum pop, generic, can I say crappy?
Yeah.
I won't be touching it. If it's nothing but an auto tune, forget it.
Yeah.
Anybody producing music aspire to higher than that.
So, what's the newest age music you touch?
Oh, the newest. Well, there have been some bands that are just right around here that, some of them are not even, I think, old enough to drink in the bands in the bars that they're playing at. But they're like today and new, and maybe just maybe 19 or 20 years old at this point. But it's like all rock, garage rock, somewhere between screaming and yelling. I love it. Good high energy stuff. Out of Rialto, Moreno Valley, Riverside. So some of these people are these living legend types that come to the region, and some are people that are up and coming from this region. It really is supposed to be a focus on what's going on. Excuse me, my show, I created it as a look at what's going on in our region. And so, sometimes it's people from here, and sometimes it's people coming to here. Doo-wop music. It's the 50s stuff. Thanks to my mom's records, I knew doo-wop long before things that were more appropriate to my age, which would be things like Queen or Led Zeppelin or something that's my age. And so so I knew that stuff very well. And thanks to this interview program, I've now interviewed close to 60 or 70 between the Woodstock era performers and the doo-wop people, original Supremes, original Drifters, Platters, Flamingos. There's whatever name it. Everybody had a name called the Four Lads, or the Four Aces, or the Four Crabs.
The Four Tops, the Four.
Four Tops,
Yeah.
yes. And it's just, I've interviewed a ton of them through this. So again, even though my show is across the broad spectrum of arts and entertainment, easily 2/3 have been music or music related. Sometimes books about musicians, but often musicians themselves and the music.
So would you say that's the best part of your day, or the best part of the job?
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. I love it because, like I said, whether it's Chris or somebody like Steve Lukather, who I've admired since I was 14, 15, to be able to speak with them and to revel in my conversation again. I love prepping for it, and then when I do it, there's a part of me still that's like, I can't believe I'm speaking with Steve Lukather, even though it's been multiple times by now. Oh boy, I can't use that word. Last time I interviewed him, he picks up the phone and says, "Yeah, this is Luke," and I'm saying, "Hey, this is Dick," and the first thing I hear, it wasn't quite these words, but you'll get the impression. His dog starts barking. "Damn it, shut the hell up!" And so my first words were, "Oh, you have the same commands to your dog that I use for mine."
That's it.
He used different words, but it was like that. But anyway, it's become, so much is very casual, and I will admit to, when I interviewed a lot of these people for the first time, or way back when I was early in my career, my biggest notation was that, oh wow, they're just like real people too.
Yeah.
They went to the grocery store. They thought COVID sucked.
Yeah.
They couldn't go out of their house, or whatever. The only difference is they pick up a guitar instead of a slide wheel, something.
So what's the worst or the hardest part of what you do?
The hardest part is ignoring maybe what is going on, all kidding aside at the moment. What was it, 4 years, maybe 5 years ago? We had the mass shooting at the Inland Center, I forget
Yeah.
what it was called. But, when things like that go on, and you want to sit down, you don't want to talk to anybody, you'd like to just go to a corner and cry. Just whatever, let it out somehow. But no, you still have to come on like you're glad to be telling people it'll be partly cloudy, but the lows in the lower 40s, sunny again tomorrow. But instead, there's horrible, weird stuff going on that ought to be affecting you, and you can't let it. That may be one of the more difficult parts. Or again, like I said even earlier when I was joking, kneecapping myself on the way into the room, and then having to bring myself together. No matter how you feel, whether it's a good day or a bad day, whether you just big fight with a wife, anybody's wife, and then having to pretend like everything is okay when you're on the air, sounding like you're happy to be announcing or whatever. That may be one of the tougher parts. Occasionally with interviews, people can be non-responsive. And you try not to ask yes or no questions, because if you do, like, did you have a good drive in here today? They will probably say yes. And really, I'm wanting a story about the drive in here today. So I've learned to ask questions differently, but sometimes people will still give a very abbreviated, short, truncated kind of answer. And so that's tough in that kind of thing. But I think the worst part, the most difficult part, is no matter how down or low psychologically, or your stomach is just off, you still have to sound like you're on and have to be there. That may be the toughest, honestly.
So I consider you to be very successful at what you do, but how would you define success in this industry?
A couple of different ways. I remember I was on your podcast and you asked, how does it feel to know that you've made it? And my answer was, I think, still a lot of people don't know my name. I'm not sure. I think it may be name recognition. That would be one part of it. But like I said, there's all things considered. More people listen to that and know who I am through that, but it's my least favorite part of the day. news. Again, theater, music, art, those are my realms. And news to me would be Miles Davis, jazz trumpeter. Miles Davis just released, they found lost recordings from Miles Davis. It's now coming out on a new album. That's news to me. The rest of the news that's going on in the world, it's predictable and often it's depressing. Shootings, Iran, or wait 10 years and switch over to Iraq. Maybe we've done that before. These days, Israel, Gaza. There are a few very predictable stories that you are going to hear on the news each and every day. And I would just rather not. Like I said, I'd rather hear about music or something more uplifting, something that will make a person feel good. There's a lot of depressing stuff in this world. And art, in its various forms, can really lift a person up. It can give you a refuge from the harsh realities. It can make you feel good, and you can help somebody else feel good through that as well.
So what advice would you give these guys if they were wanting to go into what you do? I know it's kind of it's not a dying art, but it's definitely a more refined art than it used to be, where everybody could go out and get a radio job. It's very different these days.
True.
What would you give them for advice?
Okay, now this is very direct. Like if you're about to go on the air or something like that, or you're about to get a job like that, you want to start reading everything out loud, just to get used to being able to speak out loud, no matter what it is. Oh, I just did that. What it is. I just grabbed something randomly. And so anything, whether it's the toaster manual, or you're trying to figure out how to change the oil on your car, or you pick this up and you say, the following page is the Comic-Con Revolution 2025 registration form. Try reading that out loud, and that gets you ready for speaking. It gets you to feel less funny about talking to yourself. Because all this stuff, even though I'm speaking to thousands of people every 15 minutes, I'm in a little room by myself. I'm essentially talking to myself. There just happens to be a microphone in front of me. That's one thing. One, try to be well-read, well-rounded. I would guess that your interests don't lie in picking up a newspaper and a cup of coffee every morning and seeing what's going on in the world. And I'm not saying you have to start doing that, but start dipping your toes in. Get a little bit more well-rounded. Try to look beyond where you are right now, outside the box in a way. Multiple skills. Again, a lot of I'm lucky to do this because I was hyper articulate, but also able to follow basic directions. How to describe that? Whether it's something as simple as playing a CD, or noticing that this cuts off like this, so you need to start another track. And there's all these little levels, but pay attention to very, very little details and being adaptable. You could be ready to go on the air for a news story, for example, and as you're ready to open your mouth and start reading it, the person on the national feed, they just gave that story. So you have to be ready with something else. So again, that's just one example of adaptability. Anybody involved in any type of theater, you know already that day to day, rehearsal, performance to performance, each one of those is different. Let alone when you get to a traveling theater. Oh my God, you'll be performing on a stage this big one day and this big the next. Hey, welcome, that's how it is. Get ready for change, because it's going to happen. But be ready for it and be able to transition smoothly. That's one thing. There are so many things that Chris is teaching in this class. Are you Chris or Mr. Thayer?
Either one, they know who I am.
Mr. Chris? There are things, there's a woman, Wendy, I believe that you may be meeting her in the relative near future. A lot of what she's doing at KBCR currently, I've been gone for a week and a half, like that age, certainly. But everything that she's doing, presumably up and through now, she learned here in this classroom. She's doing a lot of typing up press releases in the background. Or somebody sends in information that it's on a page this big, and we need not this, but we need about that much of it. She's condensing materials. She's also using a lot of cool Photoshop to create flyers for some of our events, whether it's a kids camp or whether we're handing out turkeys to whomever, or whatever the case is. She's helping us get ready for that. And again, the Photoshop type stuff, just as one of the things that she does at KBCR. She learned right here from Chris directly, and she honed her skills here and was able to go to KBCR with that. People think radio, okay, you need to be able to speak well and get in front of a microphone. There's more than that, of course. As if being in the world of theater means you're just an actor walking up on stage to do your presentation. So many other roles beyond that, and the same is the case with radio. There's more people working behind the scenes than the fools here on the air.
So we're quickly running out of time. I wanted to give them a chance to ask any questions that they might have if they have any.
You said you were in the Navy, right?
Please, what?
You said you were in the Navy?
I did. I was.
Did being in the Navy in any way influence you in St. Maurice that period? Or no?
In a way, because I was interested in radio before the Navy. I graduated high school and went immediately into to the university, and barely a semester in, I knew that I wasn't ready for college, and I dove out and went into the Navy. But while I was on an aircraft carrier, which is 6,000 people at sea, it's truly a floating city. And aircraft carriers have their own radio and TV station where I was able to work because of my past little collegiate background. But yeah, so I was doing live radio and TV even in the Navy. And that gave me a slight edge to be able to get into my student work position that I described earlier, working at the local NPR station. So I could do a reel-to-reel. I could thread a reel-to-reel quicker than other people. And there was the articulate thing. Between those and the fact that I could already boast a few years of experience as opposed to anybody coming off the street. So it not only influenced it, but it helped greatly with some of my knowledge and experience. So yeah, and they welcomed that because it was, in all honesty, when you bring somebody on, you welcome them because they may do a good job, and this person versus this person, well, this person has some experience, so that means you have to spend less time training them. It really is as simple as that, a lot of the time. So any little bits of information or experience that you can pick up to take to any vocation, any job that you go to, is quite valuable. And you should take note of some of the little things that you do. You may not think that, okay, I helped somebody write their paper. You know what? No, on a resume, that's assistant editor. There's stuff like that. You can help, I don't understand Photoshop. My God, help me out, please. Okay, you know what? You assisted in training a person how to do Photoshop. Little things like that. It's all in the phrasing, but it's true. I'm not telling you how to fluff up a resume on things that aren't true.
Alarm.
Getting
We've got
played
2
on.
minutes, so if
That's,
there are any other questions, please.
Is there a favorite experience you've had while being on the radio?
Some of these interviews of people that I've just looked up to for years or sometimes even decades. And another guy, for example, to try to truncate this. Oh boy, with a band called Trans-Siberian Orchestra, think of classical mixed with metal, and usually Christmas shows. And this is one of the founders and musical director and one of the lead guitarists of it. I've spoken to him again maybe 6-7 times. And most recently when I was approaching show number 500, I asked him if he would do because I always ask about Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and then after that, tell me about your time with Metallica, or Megadeth, or tell me about your time with Alice Cooper, or whatever. This time I just finally said, can I do a non-Trans-Siberian Orchestra interview with you? And not only did he say yes, but he said yes to doing a special interview for 500, show 500. And we spoke for an hour and a half, and most people were like 40 minutes. It was beautiful. That's one of several. They usually revolve around interviews with people that I love. I love jazz fusion and monster guitarists, and so that's a treat every single time. Or learning about too. The other thing, learning things that you can't read elsewhere. I've noticed some people who they are known for playing the flute, and they picked up the flute because they were uncomfortable doing it. I know of people who played the slide guitar live because they forced themselves to do it because they weren't comfortable doing it. And the best way around that, I don't know if I can name the person right now, but yeah, finding out that kind of thing. Brick House. Do I have time to tell the story behind how Brick House was written? Everybody know that song? She's a brick house. She's my. Come on, man. I don't care
I'll play
how
it later
young you are.
if they don't know it.
If you don't know it, then I'll skip the story.
They've heard it.
Do I have time?
You can squeeze it in if you can try it.
Okay. This guy's name is Whack. Now, I'm not trying to be colloquial. His name is William A. King, so he goes by Whack. And technically, he's a Whack Jr. But he was wandering around with this cassette tape that was so old it'd be the equivalent of a karaoke thing today. And it was just so she's a and stretching out and starting to go. And his wife, he was trying to finish writing the song. He didn't have many of the words, just the tune and all this. John, wow. Okay, I got something else here. And then eventually he goes to his easy chair, takes a piece of paper, his writing, what he always would write out lyrics by, and he's sitting there, and he falls asleep. And this all asked because I found all this out because I said, I noticed your wife has writing credits on this song. And so so he says, he got tired of it. Excuse me, his wife got tired of it. She said, if you don't know how to finish the song by now, there's something wrong with you. She may have even used other words, but she said, there may be something wrong with you. He gets to his chair, he falls asleep. While he's asleep, she comes along, takes the notepad, and she's sick of hearing it. She finishes out the lyrics and puts it back on without him waking up. And he wakes up at some point, he's like, this is some of the best stuff I ever wrote. And what she ended up putting on there was what you hear Brick House today. It's again, whether how old or young or what type of music you'll recognize it since you're allowed to get that on your thing again, or if you already
Well, that's about all the time we have because the bell's going to ring. But thank you guys so much for being good, and thank David for coming in. You can hear him when?
Monday through Friday, all things considered, between 3 and 7. If you want to hear that guy that was talking about I was telling him, this punk rocker guy, that's going to be tomorrow. At 2, you'll be in school, again at 6:30 p.m. But yeah, Monday through Friday for all things considered, doing the news host thing, and the arts program is Sundays and Tuesdays.
All right, David Fleming.
I guess one last thing too, if anybody is curious about it, if you go to our website, you can write it down quicker than I, kvcrnews.org/arts. And that's the complete archive. There's like 520 some shows there. If you just scroll back, you'll find musicians and authors and actors. It may be interesting.